I'm Dr. Marvin Seppala. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Hazelden. Hazelden's been around since the late 40s, and it was started by a group of businessmen from the Twin Cities area that just had concerns about friends who were suffering from alcoholism. One of the founding principles was to treat addicts and alcoholics with dignity and respect. And you can still see that every day around here. They started a program that was basically the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous and a little bit of medical care. Not much was known about alcohol detox at the time. In fact, from a medical perspective, it wasn't even well defined until the mid-50s. But they found that if they had people stay here and stay abstinent and start to look at those principles of AA, they did relatively well when they left. So with that, established a successful form of treatment that began to be used throughout the United States and ultimately worldwide. So we really were the pioneer in establishing worldwide treatment based on this model, and it was the predominant model for decades. This is a stigmatized, misunderstood illness. You're supposed to be able to just handle your liquor or avoid drugs, and some people don't and can't. And we know that over half the risk of addiction is genetic now, and other life experiences account for the other aspects of the risk, like early childhood traumas and psychiatric illnesses. The pain, the internal pain of addiction, it can't really be measured, but it's probably the worst aspect of the disease because people are so guilty and so ashamed of what they've done, don't want to admit to it. We're not a culture that accepts discussion of such things, and especially all the problems associated with it, and some sort of admission that we have this illness that no one sees as illness. I was actually in treatment on the old lodge, which was the original farmhouse. So I can walk down the halls and actually have this sensation of what it was like when I was here as a patient. And it's important to me to maintain that perspective when I think about the care we provide to anyone that comes here. When people arrive, they don't want to be here. They're broken. They don't understand what's going on. They may have had multiple treatments and still really not understand the situation. And often they're here under duress. In fact, probably over 90% of people are here because someone else required it, whether it was family, their job, or the courts that just said you have to go to treatment or else. A very small percentage come here because they recognize they had a problem. And we need to, first of all, help them fully realize the extent of the addiction so they can come to that level of acceptance. I kind of think of it as opening the book on their own addiction story, that they can really see it for what it is. Because without that, it's hard to make the difficult steps necessary to get into recovery. We address any co-occurring illness that people walk in the door with, and it's usually the case that people have something else going on. In our adult population, in residential treatment, over 75% of people also have a psychiatric illness. In our youth population, which is about age 14 to 25, that can be above 95% of people already have a diagnosed psychiatric illness before they arrive and are usually taking medication. We provide the appropriate medications, the appropriate psychotherapies that they need, and we're really working to advance our treatment programming for those people so that they not only get the medication and psychotherapy, but also a skill set necessary to the particular psychiatric problem they have. Now there's tremendous research in the neurosciences of addiction, and the medical world itself has really taken on addiction in terms of recognition of need for treatment and research and more information. But we compare that with a 12-step understanding, which has been shown in research to have remarkable benefit for people in remaining abstinent. And we've begun to realize that outpatient treatment is as successful for certain groups of folks as residential treatment is. And that's allowed us here at Hazelden to use all this other information and to examine the underpinnings of addiction. Recovery has to do with engaging with other people and admitting to other people that one has the problem so you can receive the help necessary for it. And that is something we see every day, is that people start to kind of come out of their shell and look outside themselves again. Because addiction's an isolated illness. You don't want anyone to know. You don't even want to see it yourself. So you really become isolated, and even if you're around a lot of people, you're remarkably isolated. You don't let them know who you really are. And to start to have that process happen where people are smiling again, laughing again, and starting to look at themselves in a remarkably different way, we see that every day. So we get to put all of this together under one roof in all of our programs to really help people, I think, in the best way possible, to really pull all of the information together and not just one's bias about, you know, I'm just going to use a medication to treat addiction, or I'm just going to use a kind of behavioral therapy. We'll do it all and really help people to learn how they can stay sober for a lifetime.
The spirit of Hazelden is a spirit of compassion. The early pioneers of Hazelden, people like Dan Anderson, Gordy Grimm, the early people who really developed the Minnesota model, found that it was very important to treat the alcoholic and the addict with dignity and respect. Having people locked up in barren institutional buildings was not conducive to recovery. Now that philosophy became part of Hazelden in terms of the way we look at our facilities and the way we look at our grounds and what we offer people when they come to us. We go out of our way to create a serene and peaceful environment. Hazelden is still a pioneer today. We're a treatment center that looks at new medication. We're a treatment center that looks at new modalities of treatment. All of the science of addiction, the brain science that's developed to make sure that we can really target our interventions and what we need to do to the specific individual. So the touchstone is always evidence-based. Is there evidence that this particular clinical protocol works, that gets people sober or helps them stay sober longer? And when we find that something does work, we will introduce it into our treatment protocol here. So we're proud of that. But what makes Hazelden special is that we look at all sorts of other areas in the treatment field. Our number one priority always is to help the still suffering alcoholic, addict, and their family. That's always our number one priority. So we want to improve outcomes. We want to get people well quicker and have them stay well longer, hopefully for their lifetimes. We're very focused on making sure the programs and the services that we offer are sustainable over the long term. Alcoholism and drug addiction are chronic diseases, so it's real important that you find ways to improve outcomes over time. Our other big priority here is to reach more people. With the amount of alcoholism and addiction that's prevalent among our young people, we are making the treatment of addiction and the whole area of youth a priority for this organization. It is a priority for me personally. It is a priority for all of our employees that we take a hard look at education, at prevention, at assessment. As an organization, it's important that Hazelden speak out and that we are at the table with policymakers, with government, with business, health reform. That's how we can achieve that ultimate vision, and that everyone who seeks treatment will find it. Everyone who wants to get well will get well. It's incredibly important to make sure that the voice of the treatment world is being heard. Hazelden has a real special responsibility going into the future. We're an organization that's been built by very strong people in the past. We're financially, operationally, and from a people perspective in a great position. We are the world's largest publisher of addiction-related materials. That imposes upon us a burden to make sure that we are growing and transforming so that we in fact can double the number of people we serve over the next few years and double it again after that. We continue to train the next generation of addiction counselors about the latest science, about the latest art of getting well. Because of the success of the school and the great work that it does, we have a responsibility to make it grow. We're going to do that not only by increasing our on-campus enrollment, but by being able to offer online degree opportunities for the field.
How often do you see somebody?
So our plan is to really push our enrollment of our graduate school and really triple it in size over the next few years. If you can imagine a world where no one suffers from addiction to alcohol and other drugs, if you can imagine a world where families can get the help when they need it, if you can imagine a world where if there were addicts and alcoholics, they were able to get the help they needed, they were able to recover, they were able to lead productive lives, that's a world that we imagine here at Hazelden. That's a world that we think, by living our mission of helping to restore hope, healing, and health to the still suffering alcoholic and their families, we're going to have a better world. That's what we envision here, that's what we imagine, that's why we come to work here every day at Hazelden.